Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Vitold and here is the battle of the Japanese. These are the two main Japanese mid-size adventure motorcycles that are fighting with each other for the crown, or maybe even for the win in the whole category. I do not include Yamaha Tenere 700 as it's more of a hardcore motorcycle that's having a bit of a different purpose and isn't as much oriented on purely on-road use as these two are. And yes, they are. Tenere has its own battles with the European bikes like Aprilia Touareg and Ducati Desert X that I will be comparing soon as well. Now let's focus on the V-Strom 800DE and XL750 Transalp by going through the comparison categories one by one and assessing these head to head and choosing a winner in every area. I've ridden all mid-size and large adventure motorcycles, so I'm in a great spot to tell you what to look out for and what I believe certain bikes do better or worse than others. Of course, we all have our own preferences and that's fine, as you should test everything that you are interested in yourselves anyway. Now the Transalp I've been riding and you see in this video is the one before the little changes to the front light display and differently setting up suspension for 2025, but these are in my books changes so insignificant that everything that follows in this comparison should be valid. So let's start off with the first thing to compare Suzuki and Honda in, and that's engine and performance. These two motorcycles are very closely matched here on paper, as both come with two-cylinder inline engines. Suzuki has 776 cubic centimeters of displacement, Honda has 755. Suzuki gives you 84 horsepower to use, Honda 91, and in terms of torque, Suzuki has 78 newton meters of torque, while Honda gives you 75 newton meters. Quite close everywhere, but in reality I feel like I see the V-Strom and I get less performance out of that engine than I expect, and in Honda I get pretty much what I expect. So in other words, Suzuki leaves me slightly maybe disappointed, if that's the proper word. None of these bikes is especially powerful, but sometimes the way they deliver the power can be satisfying. Of course, torque matters, and it clearly shows if you, for example, would compare these to a good old V-Strom 1000 that I was an owner of for many years. That bike would swallow these two together while having 98 horsepower, so not much more. Anyway, Suzuki feels more flexible to me than Honda, and both seem to have trouble catching their breath at higher RPM, where you would expect them to deliver some more excitement. No, not really. Both motorcycles vibrate, but in Suzuki it's terrible and may need some action if that's even possible. Also in Suzuki, its quick shifter is not the smoothest, while in Honda it's fantastic and it's a pure joy to use. Heat management is fine in both, but then in Honda, traction control isn't calibrated the best way, I feel. Suzuki might be doing it better. If you'd like to know more in detail, later watch my full honest reviews of these two independently. In terms of the next one, so handling, these two do a good job. In general, Suzuki is the king of handling between 20 and 80 kilometers per hour, where it's pure fun to play with, and it's as if you are controlling it with your mind. Amazing, and 9 out of 10 would be its score here. But then above 80 kilometers per hour, it doesn't really want to turn anymore, and at the lowest speeds below 20 kilometers per hour, it's also not as precise. These bikes have these huge 21-inch front rims and long travel suspension in the front, so that may be the reason, but yeah, Suzuki changes a lot depending on the speed. Honda is more predictable, more flat, and it behaves well almost always, except for the lowest speeds, likely for the same reason as Suzuki. Overall, it is easy to do what you want to do with Honda. It is always under control and it is pleasant to turn left and right. In the end, I'm giving it to Honda, as it won't surprise you with something negative while being very good at all times. The third area is suspension. Both motorcycles have those 21-inch front rims, but Suzuki has a 17-inch one in the rear, while Honda has 18 inches there. These rims are spoked and tires are tubed, which is a pity. Then Suzuki offers you a lot, as 22 centimeters of suspension travel in the front and in the rear, while Honda comes with 20 centimeters in the front and 19 centimeters in the rear, so visibly less. Ground clearance is 22 centimeters in Suzuki and 21 in Honda. Both motorcycles are on the softer side when it comes to dealing with the road irregularities, and I appreciate their comfortable setups. There isn't so much adjustment, and in both motorcycles it's manual, as you would expect in this category. And there are some surprises, but that's for other videos. So alright, both are rather comfy, but the main difference is that Honda is comfy when it's easy and the road is of good quality, but then when it's not, and you ride over larger bumps, it becomes unsettled and you feel the hits more than you should, in my opinion. It's not as composed as Suzuki, which is always doing a really good job here in terms of ride comfort. Its front suspension is diving a lot, but if I'm getting a stable and cloud-like ride, then I'm very happy about it. If you value comfortable ride, Suzuki will do it better. If you don't, it will still do it better. And the win's here. Fine then, what about the seat and position comfort? Both Japanese machines have their seats not adjustable. Let me repeat, not adjustable. God dang it, obviously. Suzuki is at a higher level of 85.5 centimeters, and that's a half of a centimeter more in comparison to 85 centimeters of the seat height of Transalp. In the end, both are fine for me with my 1 meter 83 centimeters of height, or 6 feet. Also, both have pretty comfortable seats, while Suzuki's may be one of the best out there with a great shape, good width, and a possibility of moving forward and backward on it. Honda's seat is soft and plush, which comes with advantages, but it also got some disadvantages that aren't there in Suzuki, like sagging into the seat. Sitting on both, I feel that their handlebars may be slightly too far from the rider, but that may be just my preference to have them closer. Suzuki's bars just feel also a little too wide for me, but its foot pegs feel like they're located in a more natural place than Honda's, so check that out. Suzuki wins for me when it comes to seat and comfort of a position, but Honda is really good here as well, in my opinion. Wind protection is a tricky one because Honda gave me the Transalp with an accessory taller windscreen than standard, which I cannot compare to the standard one in the V-Strom 800DE, obviously. So I'll briefly mention that this accessory windscreen in Honda is fabulous. Yes, it is really good. There's no adjustment of it though, which is a shame. There is, in theory, adjustment in Suzuki's solution, but it requires tools, and so you won't be able to do it during the ride, which is a shame too. There isn't much of turbulences behind Suzuki windscreen, but above 80 kilometers per hour it isn't very helpful, and it's rather loud then. Let's leave it at that, with no winners here. In the next category, so brakes, there are winners and losers though. Suzuki does a good job with both brakes, so does Honda, and both require a lot of force to the front brake lever to brake the way you would want them to, which is a downside. And then Honda's rear brake is just fantastic, and it's likely the best in the entire segment, even though you may not be able to use it often, since there are some issues in reaching it, for me at least, due to the position of the lever and the bike's foot pegs. Still, the win goes to Honda. Talking about the drivetrain now, both motorcycles use chains, so there isn't anything to say, really. I would see them using a driveshaft, but likely that's never going to happen. Whatever then. From those dreams, we move to fuel tanks, where Honda with its 16.9 liters gets a loss in comparison with Suzuki's generous 20 liters of fuel tank capacity. And yet another interesting part to compare is the bike's weight. Honda is 208 kilograms with fuel, while Suzuki is 22 kilograms heavier, also with fuel. 230. It feels surprisingly light, especially remembering what it does above 20 kilometers per hour, but Honda feels even lighter to me in general. It may be sitting slightly lower, and also being over 20 kilograms lighter may make a bit of a difference in the end, so I would say that this needs to go to Honda as a winner. But it won't be that obvious in the next category of technology. None of these bikes has cruise control, none has a cornering front light, even though they both have them in LED technology. Both have riding modes, but none has keyless ignition or a keyless fuel cap. Quick shifters are here, so can be heated grips, and in the end Suzuki has a feature of one push engine start, which I do like. It also has some theoretical windscreen adjustments, so in my books it can provide you with a little bit more options, and even though all that is limited and may not have much influence on anything, the slight win may go to Suzuki. Alright. Let me finally tell you about the engine sound. Well, it's basically not there in Suzuki, as it's a very quiet bike with not much to offer with its stock exhaust. But then Honda has done its homework and has given us a very nicely sounding exhaust on the Transalp, which I genuinely enjoy listening to. It loses a bit of its seriousness at the highest RPM, but it sounds really good otherwise in all circumstances, including just revving it like that. Very cool, and Honda wins this one. Off-roading isn't really a case, but Suzuki's suspension setup and its feel in general makes the bike seem like a more trustworthy bike to take on a gravel road, and that's how it appears to me. But they are not strictly off-road motorcycles anyway. Still, if I were to choose, I wouldn't think much and I would take the Suzuki. Design-wise, as one of my last points in this comparison, Honda looks pretty solid, pretty clean, and without some strange elements. It's a bit boring from the front, from the beginning till now, with its new light, but comparing to Suzuki's front end, it's a real beauty. We may all have our opinions and the different tastes, but here we may not, as Suzuki is just simply ugly and Honda wins. End of the topic. The one before the last one, so price and value for money category, I'll put it this way. These are super compatible motorcycles, and so if I see that I can get the Transalp for 15% less and almost be able to buy 1/3 of the electric office chair from Power Seats that I'm sitting on right now for the difference, then it makes the process simpler. Transalp costs right now in 2025 in my country pretty much the same as this office chair. Yes, it's not as comfortable nor good looking, but you know. I say that it's a better value proposition than Suzuki, unless you care about suspension comfort very, very much, this is where Suzuki wins. Otherwise, if I were to make a recommendation based on value, it would be Honda XL750 Transalp here. And finally, the X factor where I am not sure what to do, as these two are fairly similar to a point, with Honda scoring in engine and performance, but not that much, while Suzuki is handling in a way that is awesome, between 20 and 80 km/h. I believe that this handling, even though the fun with it ends at higher speeds, is so awesome that in the end of the day it makes me want to jump on the Suzuki more than on Honda. Because of this, in the X Factor category, I would go with Suzuki just a bit more. So Suzuki wins here. It wins in suspension, seat and position comfort, fuel tanks and technology categories. Honda scores better in engine and performance, overall handling, brakes, weight, engine sound, design, and value for money. Now you guys decide which are the most important to you, how important, and whether you see the things like I do see them or not, or differently. I recommend that you test ride these two yourselves. Just give them a try, but also check my full honest reviews to learn even more in terms of what to specifically pay attention to in order to decide which things you value the most in a motorcycle. Let me know about that, and see you in these videos.